All right, welcome back to Q Hoops as we continue on talking and getting better. Talking about the game of basketball and continue to get better with every episode they put out. So far we got the my story, basketball journey out, and then the NBA Finals Game One recap. So now I'm going to get into a topic that has been kind of bothering me a little bit questionable. I'm trying to figure out is what is what what is an actual NBA head coach? What does the NBA head coach even mean anymore? With all these firings and all this stuff that's been going on with coaches, it's like I don't even really know what a coach is anymore. Like winning head coaches get fired due to even having winning records, and decent coaches, get fired because of circumstances and changes. So it's like I really don't know. It's a topic I've been wanting to address, but now it's like it's time. Now that I got this up. So just make sure you continue to hit the like button, subscribe to Q Who's. We're going to continue to keep putting out content. Like I said, we got the basketball journey one out, and we got the finals, recap game when it's all coming out on all these, TikTok shorts, Instagram, YouTube, and all that. But anyway, let's dive right into it with coaching. So, like I said in the basketball journey video, when you catch, I talked about me thinking about going to coaching, and it's something I did think about when I was in college, where I thought about majoring, and then I also thought about minoring in it a little bit, but I was like, it's not something I'm 100% engaged with. It's not saying I'm not open to it, because anything about basketball, I'm kind of open to it if it makes, in essence, the right sense. But with coaching, it's like I was trying to figure out what does it really mean to be a coach? Like, what is it? Because it's not just the X and O. Like you're expected to know that anyway, but like, what is it that makes a great coach? So I started trying to find books on the great coaches. Found, Phil Jackson book, The 11 Soul Search, 11 Rings Search. I can't remember the name, but it's a book with the 11 rings, and he pretty much talks about his journey into coaching and what it really means and what it principles he applied to from his time with when he played with the Knicks to the Lakers. I mean the Bulls 6 championships and the Lakers 5, and then he left the Lakers and came back, and then like how the game is a little bit today. So you get a lot of interesting perspective in the book. And the one thing I got to give Phil Jackson credit is seeing it as a partnership, the mindfulness of unlocking every player's potential the best way he can. So it's teaching guys to understand that the greatest power as the team is the we over me. Where it's like the five hands of Tex Windy. You say like Tex Windy. You say like five players should be like the five hands on the finger, palm, glove, and all that. Now that's what it really, boils down to in a way. And that's what you're trying to see with a coach. And then also just the maximizing players' potential, the relationship he has with the players, the respect factor. It's not the fear, like the respect factor. Because, back then it was the thought of like, this is the coach and you're going to listen to everything say. That's not the NBA today. And then the interesting perspective I thought about coaching came from one of my friends. His name is Babatuna Aganubi. And he's a football guy. He's an NFL guy. Like, if we get on, like if I tell right now I want to play him man, I guarantee he will get on this game and play me right now, Matt. And he knows, he knows football. He knows his team, Cowboy family. He knows his team well. He knows what they're gonna call before they call it. What they're doing and things of that nature. So I asked him because he majored in political science at LSU, Louisiana State University, and I asked him one time, me and my friend, another friend I had, we asked him, why are you going coaching? Then we asked him, if you did go, would you want to coach in the pros? And he said no. And I was like, you wouldn't want to coach in the NFL? Like, not even as a head, just like, anything. Like, be a coordinator, be a quarterback coach, a receiver coach, a D line coach, you know what I'm saying? Like, just be around that type of talent. He's like, no. And I was like, why? He said, I read Coach Collins. Like, why? Because, like, the ego thing. And I was like, what you mean, ego? He said, the biggest thing for me is making more. These guys make more money than me, and it's the ego thing of that. And there was like 53 guys on a roster, and there's gonna be that no that guy on that team that's like, in the sense like, hey, I make X and O amount of money. I'm not coming to practice today. Like you think about it from a guy who coaches, like Deion Sanders was the same way. Like when people ask him, like he wouldn't want to coach the pros because he would hurt somebody. He would come out with half the team. And he's right to a point because there are a lot of guys in sports, if you really look at it, it's like a lot of guys don't love the game. They just play because they make some money, they can take care of the family, which is nothing wrong with that same time, but it's like you don't love it like, that's the one thing like that people try to paint Kobe like he was selfish. Like, no, when you really sit down and listen to what Kobe was saying, it's like he really didn't respect anybody that didn't take the game of basketball like it was their life. Like it was something you get up to do every day. It's not the honor, it's the privilege, to get up to do. And that's what it is in sports. It's the privilege to get up and play. God give us these opportunities to play these sports, you know, to be injury free. Whether win or loss, you get the opportunity to play. It's a moment you get a chance playing Super Bowl, no matter who you are. Being in that moment, you can't take it for granted because there's no guarantee you ever get back to these moments. Like same way with the finals. So it does come down to that, ego thing too. Having bigger ego and checking at the door. And it just depends. And it's a hard job. It's not an easy job. Because remember, you win, you get all the credit, you lose, you get all the scrutiny. And it's a hard job because these guys are coming in from, the next day in the morning, sitting in there watching film. And you think about it, after the game, like on a road trip. Like, I remember watching, who was it? It was Quentin Snyder in Utah. This is before, Donovan Mitchell. And so this was old. When it was like 20, I want to say 14. This is when it was Hayward was still there, Derek Favors was still there, Rudy Gobert was a rookie. I do not remember their guards, but that was their main three. I think this is a young Joe Ingles. Like this is a young team. This is before they had all their main guys. Like this is like 2014, 2015, and they had a video of the road trip. And I think they started in Boston. They went to Memphis, and then they went somewhere. They finished the trip off somewhere. I can't remember the actual place, but it was like you see the whole journey of what they have to do. Like literally after the Boston game, they're literally getting on a plane, and each coach is looking at film. So it's like they're looking at film. They're looking at it from the beginning of the games, and then it's like that's a job. It's like you don't know how much that is knowing you just got finished coaching a game, drenched in sweat. Like this is when they had the suits, the drenched in sweat, coaching a game. And now you're going back to watch the game over, and then you got to prepare a whole game plan for the next team. So you think about it, the regular season is like there's 82 games in basketball. It's not like in football where, again, in football you have, week one. You have Monday through Saturday, and again, first game's on Sunday. You got the whole week to go through what you have to do. NFL, it's a week by week basis. So you play the Bears one week, then you'll play the Packers the next. NBA, you're playing the Cavs one night, then maybe back to back night, you might travel to Chicago, and then you might get a day or two off in between. Then you're playing in, Miami. Like that's a grueling thing. And the thing about being a basketball player, people don't understand is you're playing on days you might not even feel like it. Your legs are tired, you're sore. You just had a bad game. Like the last thing you're trying to, hear is the next team, especially if it's a tough loss. Like if you lose to somebody like you just got 30 piece, and especially by the team that that you should have beat, it's definitely hard. Like so those things do, in a way affect you in coaching, and people don't really look into this. So I'm truly trying to figure out what does it mean to be, because winning coaches are getting fired, and the decent coaches that you would expect to get fired are not. Like we've had multiple coach of the year and championship coach get fired. Nick Nurse won 2019, he was fired. Mike Budenholzer in 2021, he just got fired. Frank Vogel, that's the main one with the Lakers last year, got fired. Darvin Ham's great, but we'll get to all that in a minute. Like getting fired. Monty Williams got the Suns to the finals. He just got fired. Now he's the highest paid coach in Detroit. They just made him a straight to the bank type offer to get him to come. They couldn't let that take a year off. So like, what does it really mean? I don't really. It doesn't really make any sense, because a lot of guys in 5 years, like I remember telling Bob Dunan this. I remember talking to him about. I was like, he asked me why do college coaches not get hired much in NBA, or why they don't really take it, because I'm like, the thing about it is, as a college coach, you have more freedom to build the team you want to build. Like I went to Middle Tennessee State. I just graduated in a month ago in May. So our coach is Nick McDevitt. We had Nick McDevitt for the men's, and he coached somewhere. I can't even think of the school. I think it was in UNC, Greensboro, Riverdale, something like that. And I looked at how he recruits our guy. He mostly recruits guys that are like 6'5", 6'4", long, athletic, defensively guys that can play like in a team, like more of a pressure scheme set, or pressuring defensively. We're running everything we can. Then offensively, it's just a motion offense, and that favors those coaches because you build the team you want to build. Just like in football, you're a college football program. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Dabo Swinney. you build the type of team you want to build. So if you don't want walk-ons, you just build people on scholarships. You do that. If you want walk-ons on the school, you don't. You build you build how you want to build. You build the team the way that you feel because you rather go down knowing you build the team off of what you did than them. And how sports are where in NBA where you're being forced to shoot the three, shoot this many threes, and you're acting like, we're asking Marcus Smart, Derek White to shoot 5 threes a game, and like that's not their, cup of tea. It's like they can shoot, but it's like asking a non-shooter to shoot at least 5 times a game. It's like asking Ben Simmons to shoot 5 times a game. He's not a shooter. Like, yeah, you got to take the shot, but if it's open, but if I'm not a guy that's comfortable taking a shot, I haven't practiced that shot. Why should I take it in a game? Worst thing you can do. It's just like throwing a quarterback into the fire. It's like throwing a high school quarterback into the NFL game right now. It's not a no. You're gonna get them killed. You're gonna get somebody hurt. It's just not a reasonable thing to do. And I kind of noticed that, like with coaching, it's like I know it's a year by year result, but it's like we're firing winning coach. Like look at Milwaukee. Like who knows just won a championship 2 years ago. The first year he got there, the Jason Kidd worked on their player development. He got them to the conference finals, and they lost to Toronto 4-2. The second year they got to the second round, and that was the bubble when they lost to Heat, and Giannis went down. They lost in 5. The year they're healthy, when they get Drew Holiday, they make change. They trade Drew Holiday, and Eric Bledsoe's going. They get Drew Holiday. They get PJ Tucker midseason. Bobby Portis is I think signed to the team. They won a championship because they were healthy. That was the team. Then the next year they kept the same team, and beside PJ Tucker and Middleton goes down the playoffs and they get beat by Boston. And then this year, Giannis is out in the first round, not 100%. Middleton, was hurt, and they lose. So it's like, can you really put that on? Like it, next mentality guy got still, but can you really put that on when you haven't really changed the roster since you won a championship? You lost PJ Tucker because he left for Miami, then he went to Philadelphia. You brought in Jay Crowder, who again hadn't played the entire season since the Game 7 against Dallas, because the Suns basically wanted to move him. They didn't want to pay him, and his role wasn't ever really defined. And you had all these other guys. Like you had your main core. You had Drew, Grayson Allen, Middleton, Giannis, Brooke, Bobby, and Pat Connaughton, and then everybody else was just. And then Javon Carter, who got added, was like you had a solid 7-8 man rotation, but it's like these teams have seen these same guys. They haven't grown their game to where it's diversified. Like Giannis is still had backdiving. Drew's defensively who he is in scoring. He had a great All-Star year. Middleton was not 100%. Brooke was great. There's a good year for Brooke Lopez. Connaughton was Connaughton. Carter was Carter. And Bobby Porter was Bobby Porter. Bobby P was Bobby P. So nothing changed. So as a GM, as a president of basketball operations, that should fall on you. But at the end of the day, it's easier to blame a coach than it is to fire yourself for the mistakes. It's like, honestly, like, what did you expect him to do? Like, of course you expect him to win because you've done it before, but like, Giannis is not 100%. Like, if you, like, that makes me think, even if they would have went to 6 or 7, he would have still had the job. Like, yeah, it's disappointment, but you just make a decision, just brass decision, like, okay, let's just fire him. We're not looking at, okay, maybe the roster could have been better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he did win a championship. Just one thing, had he not won in 21, I get firing him. But it just didn't make sense. And that's not to say the next hire, Adrian Griffin is bad. It's just to say, like, what is a head coach? Because a winning head, freaking coach he had the winnings record of any coach in the NBA in the last 5 seasons, and he got fired. And he still doesn't even have a job. Like, his name's been brought up in all these coaches and searches, but he doesn't even, have a job. So that kind of threw me off. The next one I'm going to get into is back to when I kind of knew coaching was kind of disturbing me a little bit, was with sorry for the camera move, is Steve Nash. So I remember I woke up, I was at my house like I am now. I woke up and I checked my phone. It's like around 11 or 12, and I see breaking news from Asian World News, ESPN, because I heard a ESPN thing, and it said breaking news: Steve Nash has been named the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. I'm like, Steve Nash, this is a guy we didn't even know had interest in coaching like that. Really wasn't one of because with every candidate we hear the rumor candidates, we even hear the candidates that are probably going to speculate, like the interview for the job. We didn't even hear him. He was a player personnel for the Warriors, and he gets the job because of his connection to Sean Marks and that Brooklyn Nets organization. It's like you got Tyronn Lue, who won a championship with LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's on the team there. You have, Doc Rivers. I'm just naming people. I'm not saying they're the right person for the job, but more experienced guys who have that experience. Doc Rivers, Mark Jackson, Sam Cassell, who somebody I really, really thought was going to get a job this summer, and I hope he does. Just different coaches. Just to name a few. And I'm thinking Nash got the job, and then they said Katie and Kyrie. So I'm like, eh. And then I remember thinking Stephen A had brought it up about when they asked him. He said this example like white power is like. I was like, in a way, it is. And Nash even admitted to it. But it's like my thing is not a problem with Steve Nash taking the job because if you're offered a job, you take it. The problem just comes down. There's more experienced guys, minorities of color. Like the NBA doesn't have as much problem like the NFL does. The NFL has really a problem with it, with the minority rule, like with the Rooney Rule, where they have a rule where you can interview minority candidates, and if you interview them and then you hire one, you get an extra pick and you get cast. Like you're offering incentives to do the right thing. I'm glad the NBA didn't involve that theory too. It's just like Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City. He's been interviewing for all these jobs, and there are people that don't even have experience on his level. He's been the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs like the last 6-7 years, and he's won what two Super Bowls with him. But you don't want to hire him as your coach. At least give him opportunity, and then if he fails, then he at least can learn. Like you talk about, he's never been. Well, how in the world is a coach that never has had head coaching ever going to get it? If you play in the league, that's a resume itself. Like JJ Redick when he interviewed for the Raptors, that's a resume for itself. Same with Steve Nash. His years playing in the league, that's his resume. But there's also experience. Like I remember telling my friends, I'm gonna give you this example. So let's just say I'm at the school. Like I'm at this school. I played at school 10 years ago. It's me and it's this white guy. Let's just say this now. I'm a minority candidate. He's white guy. We play on the same team. He's the all-time leader in assist steals. We're using making like John Stockton. And I'm, Karl Malone, just for example. I'm the dominant guy on the post. I got the records too. He goes on to college to do the same thing. I go on to college to kind of do something similar, but I don't really, I didn't make it to the league. I didn't get picked up. I had an injury, career and injury. So I decided to go to a coaching staff in college and just become a graduate assistant. He does the same thing, but he plays on the team. He becomes a graduate assistant. So we're based on the same timeline. By the time we're in our senior years, after senior year, we've had 4 years of experience. Let's say the high school opens up that coaching job. I'm a candidate and he's a candidate. He has the fame and fortune because he has all the records. And sorry, let me take it back. Let's just say the college he played those 4 years, but he only has a year of coaching experience as an assistant, grad assistant. I got 4 or 5 years under my belt. They interview me for the job, and they interview him for the job. Who do you think might get the job? You would think me because I've had the experience being on the sidelines, coaching these guys, and then I got tired of school, so I understand what it means to be whatever the school is. This guy played, he set the record too, but he's only got a year of experience. So we're rewarding, who we know instead of what we know. So we're rewarding Steve Nash because of his playing NBA career, and we're going to put Tyronn Lue to the side, even though he's been in that situation mid-season and he won his first year as a coach. Like that's backwards, in a way to me. And again, this is not no Steve Nash. We've seen former player coach. Some have worked out, some haven't. He's the case. Brooklyn didn't work out for him. The first year he had Durant, Irvin, Dinwiddie, LeVert, and Allen. Then they trade all them away for Harden. Then the next year, Irvin can't play because of COVID. He didn't get the vaccine. Durant goes down. Harden wants out. Then begin the season with Ben, and that didn't work out. And then they got rid of him. And then they finally got the guy who, Jock Vaughn, who was in the running when Kenny Atkinson left the job. And he finally got. And I'm glad they did because it's like that's who this really should have been had a job. But it's like it showed me right there how kind of dirty and how crazy the coaching game can be. It's just a crazy thought to think of. And then you get to the Coach of the Year candidates where you have a guy who just won Coach of the Year getting fired. Dwayne Casey was Coach of the Year with Toronto in 2018. They get put out in a sweep by Cleveland. He's fired. Detroit picks him up. And I was like, I just won Coach of the Year. You're going to fire me because we lost in the postseason? Like, give me a year. Give me another year. I worked as hard to get us from where we were. He's been there for a long time. Like, ever since after he left Dallas from 2011, he's been there for the longest. and then Nick Nurse comes in and gets the job. And then you go and do the same thing to Nick Nurse, who won a championship. Like, does a championship not guarantee me some safety? I know it's a year-to-year basis, but at the same time, is there also, you have to look at the roster? What is the expectation? I ask you this. Let me ask this. Like, if you're Nick Nurse, and after the first year when you guys won, the second year Kawhi leaves, he got them to 50 games with Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, OG Anunoby, Siakam, Marc Gasol, and Ibaka in the bubble. Then the next year, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kyle Lowry. This is when Kyle Lowry, just after the bubble. I think Lowry was there one more year and then he ended up leaving. So now, if I get you a starting lineup of VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Siakam, and Jakob Poeltl, do you honestly think that's contending for a championship? No, that's a mid-level team. They were in the play-in, and they lost in the play-in. Do you really expect me to win with this group? And then on the bench, we don't really have much to work with. Thaddeus Young is great as a veteran. You know, who else on it? Otto Porter, he was injured. No, we have a lot of length, but we don't really have the talent, and we don't really have the personnel to really do much. I'm making it work with what I can. So you're gonna penalize me for not playing the younger guys too. It's like, what is the expectation? Realistically, what are we doing? It's like, what is the expectation here? What does it really mean? I don't know. And then before I get into the current coach right now, Frank Vogel. Like, if you look at Vogel, like when Vogel got hired, he was the third candidate on the list to really get the job after Luke Walton got fired. It was, and the same with Luke Walton. Like, Luke Walton got the Lakers job off of the success he had with Golden State intern for Steve Kerr when he was out. The Lakers come in a year after Kobe's retirement. It's D'Lo, Ingram, Randall, and that group, and he takes them over. So the expectation, what's the expectation? Okay, you've been a Laker, you know how it takes to get that championship core. We're not expecting championship. We're just saying let's build slow. Let's build. You get a lottery both years, and then the third year, LeBron comes in. So now the expectation is championship. So now Luke Walton, who's gone from, okay, let's build it up. Third year, we got to be champions now. Like, and we're asking Lonzo Ball, Ingram, Kuzma, Hart to go from young guys still trying to figure out what their roles in the NBA to now being champions. I mean, at the end of the day, there's some sympathy for Luke Walton because I thought he had some bad moments, but at the end of the day, I still feel for him. And then you look at when he left the Lakers, say the King job. Bad drafting, bad picks they made, and really no key direction and expectation, and he got fired. And then it didn't change when Alvin Gentry got there. And now Mike Brown comes in, brings an actual culture, and they make moves. Like, they got Sabonis, they traded for Kevin Huerter, they signed Malik Monk, they kept Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles in the having a moment. Keegan Murray was great in the playoffs for his rookie year. Davion Mitchell, Terrence Davis, like, they were a top seed. They were a top 3 seed with this group under Mike Brown because there was culture brought and there was an actual expectation with roster moves. If the roster doesn't change, how in the world? We're all thinking alike. How are we ever going to get better? If we keep the same roster for the next 6 years and we ain't making, core decisions, key decisions, then what's going to change? That's how it was with the Lakers. Like, Frank Vogel comes in, he was third behind Tyronn Lue, who got undervalued, and they were trying to give him their essential. Like, Kurt Rambis was going to be one, Vogel was going to be one. It's great, but at the end of the day, it's like, this man is a championship coach. Do you not think he's going to? It was kind of like how Mark Jackson was with Golden State, where Joe Lacob and them wanted him to bring the best coaching staff. Like, when Steve Kerr got there, they ended up getting Rod Adams, Alvin Gentry, Luke Walton. Like, they got the top tier coaching name. Joyce was like, these are the guys I believe are the top best for our team. Then they may not be the most flashiest name, but I think we can get the job done. There's a lot of coaches that on staffs that we don't even know, that be guys that have been in this league profession for a long time, or maybe 1-2 years in, that are some names. Like, there's so many coaches in sports, especially in pros. Like, it's hard to keep up with them. We only know the main ones, and then there's former players that are on staffs that you don't even really know. So then Bonnie Williams was offered a job, and he declined it because he understood, like, the expectation. What is the expectation? If I got to come coach this, I don't know. Frank Vogel take the job because he's the third guy, and pretty much he's offered the job, and they told him, hey, we're going to give you maybe like 3 years max. We're going to pick your staff for you. We're going to give you these recommendations. Now, Jason Kidd is going to be one. Phil Handy eventually going to, like, he had a great staff. And the first year he was there, they traded for Anthony Davis. He got the team he wanted, and they won. The second year, they lose majority of those guys, and they tried to make up for it. And they were still top number one defense with LeBron and Davis out. Playoffs come, they underperformed because LeBron Davis 100%, and the bench depth and core they had went up. And then they just decided to blow it all up to go get Russell Westbrook. Now that's not saying Vogel didn't have a say so in the decision, or probably some pressure from LeBron and Davis. But there's also the question of, did Vogel want him? You do have to ask it, because at the end of the day, you got to understand the coach has to coach these guys. It's not like Rob Pelinka or Jeannie Buss is coaching Russell Westbrook. I got to coach him. So I got to understand, not even just from the basketball, but the fit. Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis. So now I got to change our style of offense to faster, more so offensively. I mean, defensively, we are who we are because we're going to kill and transition anyway, because that's how we've been. But now that changes the dynamic of the team. And then you saw when Vogel, because Vogel is known for, he's great defensively. He's a great defensive coach. Like, he's a top tier defensive coach. His strategies, his adjustments were on point, because he went from, in the bubble, from Damian Lillard to them playing up high to Harden and Russell Westbrook to beat them with putting Anthony Davis on them, inserting Dwight Howard in on Nikola Jokic, and then in the finals against the Heat, just inserting Caruso. He had great moments. Defensively, he knew what he was doing. If you give him a great offensive assistant like Jason Kidd, who played the game and understand, Phil Handy and Lionel Hollins, he's great. But he's been shaky always offensively when it's just him. Like you saw when Kidd left and they brought in Fizdale. But more than I can't even put on Vogel, because that team just offensively was decent. But it was like spacing was terrible. Your starting lineup on opening night was Russell Westbrook, Kent Bazemore, LeBron, AD, and DeAndre Jordan. Where's the spacing? There's no guy other than Bazemore on that team that shoots the ball at a solid rate. LeBron can shoot, but he's streaky. Russell's streaky. Andy Davis' jumper was falling over. DeAndre didn't even take them. He was, at that time, his free throws were dropping. So it's like, really, what are you expecting me to do with this? And then, at least he was, honest. And then you just fire him because you gave him a crappy roster. He won a championship a year ago. At the point, and realistically, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, I wanted Vogel to be fired, not because the team was just losing. It was just more so like it was time to move on. Because with certain coaches, you get to feel like they're gonna only last in maybe 2-3 years. Like window was 2-3 years. They didn't even offer him an extension after he won, and then even the year before. So I was like, he's probably gonna be gone. And this got to the point where it's like, after each game, you were thinking, man, is the announcement ever gonna be made that Frank Vogel's gonna be fired? Like, he's a great guy. He was great, holding guys accountable in film, talking, great about guys, never throwing guys under the bus. And you got to appreciate the professionalism he has. And then when people ask me, and I remember about 2 days, do I ever think he'll get a job? I was like, no. And it's not because he's not a great coach. It's just the game has become so offensive-minded in the way the game is today that defensive coaches, it's hard for them to last unless it's in a place that's taller. Like Tom Thibodeau's lasts for as long as he lasts, but he has that experience factor to him. And it's like, it's not like he's gonna, never do. Like Darvin Ham's a defensive coach more so. And he even said it. Like when the Lakers fired Vogel, there was like multiple candidates. The one I advocated for the most was Darvin Ham. And my friends can tell, I was saying Darvin Ham is the right guy because he's a former player. He understands these guys. He's gonna hold them accountable. And this season he did. They went 2-10, and with the rosters moves they made, got to the conference finals. He left a lot of people impressed. And this is a guy that never coached as a head coach. I just had faith because he's a former player. He had been on a championship team, and he understood every guy and what they needed. Yeah, he did some boneheaded thing, but every coach does it. It's a love-hate relationship, but you got to appreciate these coaches. And Darvin Ham was one of them. So that's why it's like, I don't understand. I wish it could be defined and it could be more safety precautions. Like what is a head coach in professional sports? What is it in the NBA? Like, because, guys like Doc and them get fired. That's not to say some of them don't deserve it. Some just don't get, like, you never want to see a guy get fired and not get another job. It's like some coaches, don't fit in that job. Like Doc should have never been in Philly because of Ben and, Joel Embiid. So it's like some you understand, some you don't. So to wrap it up here for probably like next 10 minutes, we're going to just talk about the coaches that got these new jobs they got. So Philadelphia just hired Nick Nurse. I don't understand why Nurse took that job instead of Phoenix. I would have took Phoenix, but I give it probably a B hire. And it's not even because it's Nurse because Nurse is great defensively. He does everything you want. He's so involved in the game from the defensive standpoint. Offense is shaky, but at the same time, you can only attest that to the team they had. They haven't really had offensive minded guys. Like we with Kawhi Leonard, they just mainly ran pick and roll and they moved the ball essentially well. And he's probably the best coach that coaches defensively against Joel Embiid. So it's like it's gonna be interesting to see. I wish he would have took the Phoenix job, but I can understand. It's gonna be interesting to see what he can do because he's gonna be a great coach for them. But it's like, what does the roster look like? Because you can't put it on Nick Nurse if you don't make moves. If Harden leaves, who do you have in mind to replace him? If you make moves, who do you have in mind to replace the guy? So, like, if you move Tobias Harris, who do you have in mind to get him for? If you McDaniels, did he start? Like, who's at the 3? So, like, those things. Like, if you don't make roster moves, then honestly, the coaching doesn't matter. Like, Doc was solid in Philly, but Joel Embiid is lazy because more so, you're great, but you're playing this. If you play Greek, Russell Westbrook effort every single play, it's hard to argue against you. Like, if you play like Jokic in a way, like, it's hard to argue against you because you're great. You're MVP now, but you're lazy MVP. Like, in a game 6 or 7, you didn't even really do much. You didn't do much. You're just tired out. You like by the time you get the second round, you're wearing down when your team needs you the most. Especially when you're just settling on jumpers and the 3. No, the middies are fine when you have them, but it's like you should be punishing guys down there every time because you just waste your size. So I don't know where they go from here because it all depends on what Harden does with the whole Houston room. I'm probably going to make a video about what happens with them. But that is a question you do have to ask. Like, what roster moves are they going to do? Because it all depends on Harden. And I know they talk about Van Vliet could be a candidate to take over um, if Harden does leave. So you do have to wonder what Philadelphia's ceiling can be. And if they don't, does Embiid ask out? Because at some point he's getting older. He's like 28, 29. Like his great MVP days and prime days are going to be short numbered. But enough of Philly. Let's get to Milwaukee. Adrian Griffin, a former Buck, played with the Mavericks in the finals. Great 3-and-D, great coach, teaching wise. Like I was kind of shocked that he got the job because I had forgot about him as a coach. Like I knew his name was in it because I remember seeing his name with the Lakers job came up because he coached. He's been under a lot of former defensive coaches like Scott Skiles, Tom Thibodeau, Nick Nurse. So it's like he's been in every role. He's been a lot of defensive coaches. So it's like I think he'll be great in Milwaukee. I think even Giannis advocated for him. So I'm like, it's a solid hire. I probably could have more of a same thing, probably like a B plus, just to see what he can do because he's the guy who hasn't had the chance. But it's great to see when you see former players get that opportunity to become coaches. And he's one guy that has been assistant coach for a long time. And then remember, his son plays in the league too. It's like he's been there from Milwaukee to Chicago to even Toronto. So it's like it's great to see. Other hires, we're still waiting on the Suns, Raptors. I'm getting Detroit. Monty Williams. That what I didn't expect. I thought the top candidate would have been Charles Lee and then Kevin Ollie. I think those are the main two. And then if Monty didn't take the job, I think Charles Lee would have got it. Monty kind of shocked me. I kind of gave it like around a B minus because it was like they threw money at him and he took it. It's not a bad job. They're young and they need direction. And Monty Williams has been in that case where, similar to Phoenix. I think the only question with Monty remained with that one is like, are you going to be able to pull out the same method like you did with Booker? Because the talent is not the same, but you have a young core. But maybe Monty's interested in that because he was going to take a year off coaching. But it's just, what moves do they make? Because you have your bigs in Duran, Wiseman, Stewart, and Bagley. Maybe one of them or two of them probably going to be gone, which you having Cade and Ivy and the draft pick you have. So it's like, I think he's got some leniency. And then Troy Reed was there from, Oklahoma City, so that's that connection there. And then their owner, Tom Gores, he always liked to make a big splash. Like, remember when they got Stan Van Gundy, and then when they ended up getting Dwayne Case at the get fired. So he likes to make those big splashes. And that's a lot of money to pay for a guy in Monty Williams, who's a great leader, great guy overall. But it's just more of what is it going to look like. So it's not a bad hire. It's just one of the things. The one I can't figure out is Toronto. Because, like, Toronto has interviewed so many different people. Like, Reddick was one of them. Some overseas coaches. Like, I don't know where they go. I don't know. Like I think my top guy for them would probably be Jordy Fernandez from the Kings. This is like or Dave Allman from the Nuggets assistant. Like, I think they lean towards more of an assistant guy or somebody else. I don't think they're gonna lean towards, Budo or somebody like that. Because it's like I don't even think they know what they want to do, direction of the team. I don't think it's clear. Because remember, like I said, you have Van Vliet who's said to make $30 million this summer. You got Pate Trent, OG Anunoby has I think 2 years left. Siakam has a year or two left. Yaga Pert's got to get paid. Then Scotty Barnes rookie extension come up. If that team got to the play-in, what coach is going to get them to a championship? You got to make moves, and it might be some guys like. Do you not consider maybe starting over around Scotty Barnes? Because if that group only got you to a play-in spot and you lost the first play-in game you was in, I don't know what you expect next season to look like. Yeah, you have Yago Pertl, so maybe your adjustment, your schemes will change, but it's not like you have Nick Nurse. You're not going to really improve from mid-level to championship. And there's not really a guy like you can go find maybe a Beal or DeRozan, but he might move up a little bit, not much. You'll get a go-to shot maker and creator, but you don't really move much, and that's a lot of money to pay, especially with this new CBA kicking in. Fred VanVleet $30 million, Trent 20, Barnes when he gets his 20, Siakam's making like what 30, and then Yaga Pertl making around maybe 15, 20. Like that's a lot of money for five guys. You're basically in the same predicament as the Warriors, but you pay a mid-tier guy, and that's not to say they don't deserve the money. It's just like that's a lot to commit to a team that's only being a ninth or 10th seed. So that's something they got to figure out. And then the last one is the Suns. Now the Suns one is also confusing too because it's like the main three has come down to Kevin Young, the assistant coach, Frank Vogel, and Doc Rivers. If I had to rank who I want, it would be Young, Vogel, and then Rivers. I don't think Doc should take another job for right now. And that's not a knock on him. It's just like you've had your time as coach. And unfortunately, you've been at a lot of these 3-1s from the Magic day to the Clipper day. And I mean, you're a great veteran. Cause like this would be the perfect team for Doc. But it's like if I'm Matt Ishbia, you just let go of Monty Williams. I don't think Doc would be your hire. I think you want to probably either go in house or bring somebody outside. So it's either going to be Kevin Young, and I thought Nick Nurse would have been the guy too, but it's probably going to be Kevin Young. I think Vogel will be solid for Durant and Booker, but it's like unless they're going in a defensive direction and he really has a great offensive assistant, it can be tough. But that's not to say he. I think Vogel can be great on the right team. Like he might at best probably be an assistant, like back in Dallas at this point, because he's gonna always get interviews. Like he's always gonna get interviews. He's like Mark Jackson. You're always gonna get interviews, but if you wouldn't take that assistant coach job, I'm sure you would probably be the first one on everybody's freaking list. And that's another guy, Mark Jackson, who's always getting interviewed. He got interviewed for the Bucks job. He probably won't ever get another job, and that's just a sad sight. But that's another story for another day. But it's probably gonna be Kevin Young because he has, his time with Philly, you know, with Brett Brown and Monty Williams, and then Devin Booker's advocated for him. So he's a wild card because you really don't know what who he is and what he's done much more. From the outside world looking in, maybe inside is different, but it's like he would probably be the one that would shock me because, I think Sam Cassell would be a good one for that job. I think it's some other one, but it's like it's probably going to lean towards Kevin Young, and it may be a surprise. You never know. No, I mean, freaking Steve Nash just took an interview with Toronto, so he might end up being the Toronto coach for Christ's sake. So you just never know in the NBA. But it's like if we're gonna, if we're going to have these coaches, we got to really define what it is. Because if winning coaches are getting fired, then what's the standard? So like, you think about this: Popovich, Spoelstra are really the longest tenured guys. Like, who to say they aren't? Who to say Darvin Ham isn't next to get fired after this next season or the year after? Like, winning coaches are getting fired. Losing coaches are not even safe. Like, it's crazy to think that a losing coach like the Thunder job is more secure than Steve Kerr job. Like, that might be in the case where Steve Kerr might end up getting fired next year, and he might take the Spurs job. I mean, Coach Wembanyama, you just never know. I'm just throwing out things, but it's like you just never know with these scenarios, with these teams, on what they're thinking. But it's like it really let me ask the question: what is it? What do you really want in a head coach? And it's also thinking like, if we fire this guy, what is it about Adrian Griffin? Like, I do want to ask this question. I really want to ask this question to all the GMs and all the executives and all the people around the league. Like, what is it about Adrian Griffin that has you to believe that he will be a better coach, or what does he bring that Mike Budenholzer didn't bring? Like, Same with Nick Nurse and Doc Rivers. Like, what does he bring? Some can be answered, some can, but it's like, what is the belief that you have in this person that says X can bring this, this, and this that O couldn't bring? Do you also have to think about it? Does the roster change? Because you can do all the schematics and all that you want, but at the end of the day, if you don't change the roster, you just throw it on the coach because the GM can't do a terrible job. Like, I think that's cowardly. That's a cowardly thing. And then you go in the draft lottery. I mean, you go in the combine and you see all these guys. And then you don't know if a guy's great because you're putting them through these stationary drills or you having these 5'3" train. Like, get some people in there. Like, if I'm in the draft this year, like if Scoop can go up against or any of these guys that hadn't really played against tough competition, go against Scoop. He's got an NBA Brady body. See what he can do. Put him in that 5v5 because 1v1 is like not every guy in the combine in the draft is not a 1v1 guy. Jokic is not a 1v1 guy. He's literally showing us why if you put him in 5v5, how dangerous he can be. If he just having one-on-one, he's not that player. That's how you miscalculate guys. Like, there are certain guys that can be like Mikal Bridges has a little bag to him. We wouldn't have known that in Phoenix. Like, he shoots them, but it's like what he's doing in Brooklyn, you didn't really see that much of Phoenix. So when the opportunity and situation opens up, you see like Wiggins in Golden State. Well, you really get to see what Wiggins is about than what you couldn't see in Minnesota. Cam Johnson, the player, like when you give a guy his moment, they showcase what to do. Lonnie Walker, he had his moment in San Antonio. And then the players in the Lakers, like if you put a guy in the moment, you don't really never know what he can do until you do. But that comes from understanding your players and having them be ready, truly for the moment at hand. So it's like I just really want to know, like, that's the question really of the day. Like, what is an NBA head coach? What is the criteria? What does it mean? Who are successful? Because I'm sure if you ask everybody else, it's different. Like, but to me, the standard you have to look at probably here is Potion. Because this playoffs, he's maximized, not even just their draft, he's maximized 1 through 15's potential. They've all had moments. Gabe Vincent's had the moment. The shot in Milwaukee. Caleb Martin in Game 7. Max Strus had his moments. Duncan Robinson, who pretty much was out the rotation, had his moments. Haywood Highsmith, like I didn't even know who he was. I just knew him for 2K. He had his moments. Cody Zeller, who pretty much was written off in the league. Like, man, that's a coach right there. Because the determination, the grit, the grind, the player development, putting these guys where every guy matters and is ready for the moment, it just shows you how well. Like, even if Miami doesn't win, this is a great season that you can build upon next season. Because they just need a shot creation type of guy like Kyrie or Dame or somebody. But, like, that's what you want in a coach. And that's why you have to give props to, these coaches. Because it's all about establishing a culture and not just schematics. Like, schematics are great, but if the guy can't establish a culture, he can't build their relationship with a player, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I can go get the greatest offensive coordinator in the football, but he might not be a great head coach. He might not have head coaching qualities because as being a head coach is being a leader. You have the culture, what you tolerate, what you won't tolerate. Like in Golden State, Steve Kerr has that. Like, you can't just bring anybody into the Warriors team and they'd be great. Like, there are certain guys they pick and choose and look for because, one case James Wiseman, like Wiseman just wasn't for that. And now he's actually thriving more in his NBA career in Detroit. So you do have, those moments. But that's just all. I just don't understand what does it mean to be a coach. So that is, again, that's the question of the day. But we're hitting about 44, 45 minutes. So we're just going to end it off here. The next final video for the day we got coming out. I'm going to preview the Lakers offseason and look at what they could do, what they should do. And we're just going to take a look at what could possibly happen down in La La Land and talk about LeBron, AD, Kyrie rumors, and all that good stuff. And this has been, keep watching. This has been Q Hoops, and we out. See you in the next video.